I didn't know back then that darkness wasn't just the absence of light. It was something much worse. It was a living, hungry, and malicious presence that had been waiting for the right moment to slip inside. There are some doors in this world that are meant to stay shut, and once the hinges break, whatever's on the other side doesn't just visit, it begins to dismantle your life piece by piece until nothing of your original self is left. It all started exactly 3 months ago. I was wandering through a neglected part of downtown, down a narrow alleyway choked with gray fog and the smell of damp asphalt. I stumbled into a cramped, dusty antique shop I had never noticed before. The shelves were cluttered with broken pocket watches and faded photographs of strangers. But what caught my eye was a plain, leather-bound journal sitting alone on a low oak table. It had no title and no markings. When I picked it up, the leather felt unnervingly warm against my palm, almost like human skin. I opened it, but every single page was blank. I took it to the counter. The old man behind the register didn't look at my face. He kept his eyes fixed on the book, his fingers trembling as he shoved it into a brown paper bag. As I turned to leave, he muttered in a low, flat voice, "Some doors are easy to open, young man, but they are impossible to close." I didn't think much of it then. I just figured he was an eccentric guy who spent too much time alone with old relics. The first night I brought the journal home, everything felt normal. I put the book on my nightstand and went to sleep. But at exactly 3:13 a.m., I woke up to a sudden biting cold. The heating was on, yet the air was so freezing I could see thick plumes of my own breath rising into the dark. I tried to sit up, but my limbs wouldn't move. A massive, invisible weight was pressing down on my chest, pinning me to the mattress. I assumed it was sleep paralysis. I told myself to calm down and wait for it to pass. Then I noticed the corner of the room, right next to the wardrobe. There was a shape standing there. It wasn't a solid human figure, but a dense, shifting mass that was darker than the shadows around it. It seemed to absorb the light from the street lamp outside, rippling like thick, oily smoke. It didn't have a face, but I knew it was staring directly at me. Then the silence was broken by a dry, rhythmic cracking sound, like someone deliberately snapping their knuckles one by one. The moment the sound stopped, the weight vanished. I scrambled out of bed and locked myself in the bathroom until sunrise, telling myself it was just a vivid nightmare. Over the next few weeks, the anomalies became impossible to ignore. It started with small things. I would leave for work, making sure every door was locked. When I returned, I'd find subtle, deliberate changes. One day, all the kitchen chairs were moved from the table and stacked in a perfect pyramid in the center of the living room. Another day, every book on my shelf had been pulled out and laid flat on the floor, all pointing toward the northern wall. Then there was the incident with the bathroom mirror. I was brushing my teeth on a Tuesday morning, the hot water running to build up steam. As the glass fogged over, I noticed lines forming in the condensation. Someone had traced a word into the moisture while I was standing right there. The letters were sharp, a P-E-R-I-O. It's Latin for I open or I uncover. I wiped the mirror clean, my hands shaking. This wasn't just a haunting. Whatever was in my apartment was communicating. It was letting me know the door was open. By the second month, the sounds grew more aggressive. I stopped sleeping. Every night around 3 a.m., I'd hear footsteps coming from the far end of the hallway. It was a heavy, dragging sound, as if something was pulling a dead weight across the floor. And with every step, that same sickening, bone-cracking noise echoed through the walls. It sounded like an entity whose joints were completely inverted, forcing itself to walk by snapping its own skeleton into place. One night, the terror became too much. I crept to the bedroom door and pressed my ear against the wood. The dragging stopped right outside. I knelt down and looked through the gap under the door. In the dim hallway light, I saw two long, pale, distorted feet standing completely still. The skin looked leathery and gray. The toes were elongated, twitching rhythmically against the floorboards. They stood there for 3 hours. During that time, a suffocating odor seeped under the door, the smell of wet earth and decaying meat. I held my breath, praying for morning. As the weeks dragged on, my perception of time began to disintegrate. I would sit on the couch at noon, blink once, and when I opened my eyes, the room would be pitch black. The clock would read 4:12 a.m. 12 hours would just vanish. I had no idea what I was doing during those blackouts or where my body was going. I started finding physical evidence on my skin. I'd wake up with deep, purplish bruises wrapped around my ribs, shaped like long fingers. There were scratches running down my spine, scabbed over with dark blood, as if something was trying to claw its way out from inside me. I stopped going to work. I couldn't face people while looking like a walking corpse. My skin was a sickly gray, and dark circles ringed my eyes. But when I looked into the mirror, my reflection didn't look tired. It looked alert. One evening, I raised my right hand to splash water on my face. The image in the glass mirrored my movement, but it happened a fraction of a second too late. I froze. The reflection didn't drop its hands. It kept them raised, fingers twitching. As I watched, the reflection's face began to distort. It didn't mimic my terror. Instead, its mouth stretched into a wide, unnatural grin. The corners of its lips pulled back so far they nearly reached its ears, splitting the skin. The eyes rolled backward, leaving nothing but hollow, milky white craters. I smashed the mirror with my fist, shattering it into 1,000 pieces, but every single shard on the floor still held a tiny, smiling version of that creature. And last night, things broke entirely. I woke up in total darkness, but I wasn't cold. I felt weightless. When I tried to move, I brushed against a hard, flat surface. I realized I was pressed against the ceiling. Gravity completely reversed for me. I was suspended upside down, looking at my own bedroom from above. In the dim light, I could see my own body lying tucked into the sheets below. As I watched, the body in the bed slowly began to move. It didn't sit up. It rotated its neck a full 90 degrees, turning its face toward the ceiling. The eyes were wide open and stark white. The jaw dropped open with a sickening pop, unhinging like a snake's. A thick, ink-like fluid oozed from its mouth, spilling onto the sheets. The lips didn't move, but a sound filled the room. A distorted rasp that sounded like 1,000 dead voices whispering in unison. Finally, the voice rasped through my own stolen throat. The door is wide open. Now you are just the shadow. The invisible force holding me to the ceiling vanished. I fell plunging toward the bed, but I never hit the mattress. I felt like I was falling through a bottomless, icy pit, tumbling through layers of freezing black water until I lost consciousness. I woke up in bed this morning. The sun was shining. Everything was silent. At first I was relieved. I thought it was over. but then I tried to take a deep breath. My chest felt tight and hollow. I reached up and pressed my fingers against my wrist, then my neck. There was no pulse, no heartbeat. There is only a cold, static emptiness where my life used to be. I am moving my limbs right now. I am typing these words. But it feels like I am operating a heavy suit from a great distance. My thoughts don't feel like mine. They feel like echoes of someone else's commands. I'm just a passenger in the back seat, watching a stranger take the wheel. The temperature is dropping again. The digital clock on my desk is flickering, the numbers warping into symbols I don't recognize. When I look at the reflection of my computer monitor, I don't see the room behind me. I see that dark mass from the first night, but it's not a shadow anymore. It's a perfect, ink-black silhouette of my own body, standing 3 feet behind my chair. It is mimicking my posture exactly. Its hands are hovering just above my shoulders. The scratching sounds are back, but they aren't in the hallway. They are coming from inside the walls of this room. A frantic scraping of fingernails against drywall, as if hundreds of things are trying to claw their way through the paint to welcome their new companion. I don't know if I'll be the one who wakes up in this bed tomorrow. If you ever feel a sudden chill in your house, or catch your reflection moving out of sync, don't look closer. Don't turn on the lights. Once you notice it, the invitation is accepted, and by then, it's already too late. I can feel its breath on my neck now. It's freezing. It smells like old paper and copper. My fingers are stiffening, typing the last few letters without my permission. It just leaned in and whispered with my own voice. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to subscribe for more. See you in the next one. If there is a next one.